I was initially a little confused when I first saw the trailer for The Quiet Man during Square Enix's presentation back at E3 2018. When I saw it, I thought to myself, oh hey, Square Enix might hopefully be doing something with the bouncer. Little did I know that The Quiet Man was going to be an original game featuring a deaf protagonist. The game follows Dane, a deaf man fighting to rescue a pianist from a mysterious kidnapper wearing a bird mask. The game employs live action sequences weaved in with CG gameplay where Dane must defeat enemies or investigate objects in order to proceed, and the mix of live action and CG gameplay is a little uncommon today. The most unusual feature of the game though is that a majority of the game features little to no sound. I presume so that the player can try and piece things together or interpret the story from Dane's perspective. First things first, is the game any good? Find out in The Good. I can't believe I'm saying this, I'm actually struggling to find something I really liked in this game. I guess I can appreciate the idea and artistic vision that this game is going for, as well as the goal it's trying to achieve by having you play the game with no sound. As I mentioned earlier, I figured it's so that player can fit the story together and draw their own conclusions on what exactly happened in the game. The game does have some minor use of sign language, and I'm sure people who can understand it will have an easier time working things out. The game has a much larger focus on its story over gameplay, and I didn't particularly mind the live action sequences. The game did recently get a patch which enables you to replay the game with sound on, so you can understand the plot of it as well as the motives of the characters, and when you complete the game the first time around, there are some sound cues which do heavily hint at what's happened. Otherwise, I can't really think of much else here, so let's move on to the bad. Oh boy, I don't know where to start. The visuals outside the live action sequences I found were passable at best, and it's quite noticeable when you transition from live action to CG. Once you get into combat, the game becomes an absolute mess. Dane finds himself fighting multiple characters, and these character models get reused throughout the game. Character models are janky, even compared to the trailer back at E3, and there's a lot of issues with clipping, whether it's Dane or an enemy. Combat itself is quite repetitive, and you'll find yourself pressing the same buttons and performing the same moves for most of the game while beating your enemies down with relative ease. Machetes, which are in itself dangerous weapons, I found looked and felt like they were made of rubber or plastic and didn't really present themselves as much of a threat. And the same could be said about the baseball bats. To add to the difficulty, as you play through the game, the only real challenge is that you have to fight more enemies in a scene, and that they'll either come out from a door or an entrance, or instantly spawn. The game provides no tutorial on what Dane can do, and I found myself having to go into the settings to find out what each key or button did. And even then they don't really go into detail, instead using neon images to represent what the button does. There are very few controllable scenes where Dane isn't fighting, but I found they were either to walk to the next cutscene where you hear everyone talking in PlayStation 2 system sounds, or in the one scene where you do look for clues, you just walk around until you hear the sound of a heartbeat and then hit the button. The game itself is quite short and can be treated as a movie which takes about 3 hours to beat, or in other words, one sitting. To truly understand the game and to listen to it with sound, you are forced to play through the game without it first, so some players can be put off knowing that they have to play through the game a second time round in order to figure out the game's plot, which means going through another 3 hours. I think I've pretty much ranted and raved on about things I didn't like in the game, so now it's time for the opinion. Despite the artistic vision the game is trying to achieve, I think the idea is good on paper, but just not executed right. I can see a lot of work was put into the live action scenes, but I can't say the same for the CG portions, which really let the game down. It's really hard for me to recommend the game to anyone, and I would wait until the game is a couple of dollars before even considering buying it. Without spoiling much, I did play through the game the second time round, and once I understood the story, I thought it was alright, but felt very cliched, and having to fight through all those repetitive fight scenes again was something I didn't really look forward to. But with that, it's time for my rating. I would give The Quiet Man Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next Infinite Backlog review. If you enjoyed today's review, feel free to check out some of our other videos and subscribe for more. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram and our Facebook page. Once again, thank you for watching.